Hello and welcome to our follow-up video on traveling to Sydney for the Sydney Marathon. You've probably landed here because you're running Sydney as a 7th major. This is the first time this happens. It's the inaugural 7th major. And you're interested in content about that. Firstly, let me introduce myself. My name is Letty. I host this channel, Letty Runs, and also I host the Marathon Running Podcast. You're welcome to check those out too. Now, like I said, I already have 2 videos out on this topic. One of them is a course walkthrough that I highly recommend, and we will link those down in the show notes for you. The other one is a beautiful, lengthy interview with an all-star panel, including the Sydney race director, an admin of the Sydney Marathon Facebook support group, the head coach of the Sydney Marathon, a Sydney Marathon pacer, a representative of the official sponsor ASICS, and the lead convoy logistics person. All of them contributed to a beautiful video, and I will link both of these videos right here. But since that wasn't enough, now we're back and we have more questions. It's those tiny little nitpicky questions that keep us up at night. So we are very lucky to bring back Ben Rocke from the Facebook support group of the Sydney Marathon. It's an amazing group. I'm going to link that down in the description, and he's going to help us out. So Ben, thank you so much for joining me back.
Thanks, Letty, for having me back on. I appreciate the opportunity to come back and talk to you again. Hope you've been well.
All right, Ben, let's start by revisiting what it is that we can and can't bring into the country of Australia. We've heard that customs are quite different from what we might be used to in Europe, and even stricter than going to Hawaii. There are some specific restrictions on what can be brought in. So how might these rules affect us as runners? Because we know that we can bring in things like gels and salt tablets, but what are some of the other key items that we need to watch out for?
Essentially, Australia has quite a strict quarantine regulation. So as long as you are declaring what you're bringing in terms of what's on the passenger card, so you'll receive a card when you are on the plane. On that, it explains what you can and can't bring. It's probably best that you sort of familiarize yourself with the regulations prior to boarding the plane, because you don't want to sort of bring anything like nuts, fruits, seeds, vegetables, anything sort of like fresh that is grown, that doesn't come in a package. Tentatively, you can't bring. But if you declare it and you're not allowed to have it, then essentially it'll just get taken away from you and confiscated. There's no penalties. It's only just when you don't declare it and you have something, then essentially that's when you'll get into trouble and potentially, you might not even get let into the country perhaps, if it is a serious offense.
Thank you, Ben. Those are some great tips. And now for those of us flying in last minute, cutting it very close to the expo, is it possible to bring a suitcase to the expo?
From my understanding, you shouldn't do that at all. I'm not sure if they will actually limit you from bringing a suitcase, but essentially, like if you have a look at where the expo is located, there's a really big park between it and the CBD in the city. So you probably want to drop it off at your hotel. Otherwise, you'll be lugging your suitcase quite a fair distance, either to the expo or from the expo. So the best thing to do is to find a storage place. A lot of hotels, they'll just keep your bag for you anyway before you check into your room. So if you can check in early to your hotel, then I would definitely suggest doing that.
All right, noted. Now, when it comes to bib pickup, the organizers give us the option of signing up for specific time slots when we want to attend the expo. Does choosing this time slot give us any perks, like maybe skipping lines, or does it prevent us from coming in at any other times?
It's a great question. Essentially, it's just really to help guide the volunteers and organizers on when to expect demand for people to come and pick up their bibs. As this is sort of a new situation for this year, I would dare say that it is likely that you probably will have a skip the line type option for people that essentially are there at their particular slot. If you're not there at your slot, I wouldn't worry so much. You just might have like a little bit of a longer line. But I don't think that should sort of prevent a lot of people. I don't think it's something to get worried about at all.
Wonderful. Thank you. Now, the Expo guide is very thorough, and we're going to link that down below. But what are your personal recommendations? What should we look out for? What's the best time to go to avoid crowds? And what about important logistical things like bag drop-off? What do you recommend?
Yeah, another great question about the Expo. Essentially, you sort of want to go at the fringe periods. So, towards the end of the day is probably like a really good time. The actual marathon expo is across Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. and there's different times for different days. So each of the days has actually a different time. So you probably want to have a look at those hours of operation just to make sure that it aligns with your schedule. So yeah, going at the start of the day, going at the end of the day is probably the best situation. If you're like a little bit patient as well, I think it should be okay. Obviously, some people, you're allowed to go there many times. You're just not allowed to sort of go to your bag and sort of do a bag drop more than once, or even access your bag once you've dropped it off. So make sure that when you actually do drop off your bag, that you've got everything in there that you need at the end. And you don't pick up the bag from the expo. The bag will be transported and waiting for you at the finish line. So make sure you've got everything in there, and because you won't be able to access it until the finish line once you drop it in.
Okay, very well. Now, I've compiled a list of shakeout runs happening before the race. For instance, your Facebook group's shakeout run is going to be at 9 a.m. at Campbell's Cove on Friday, not Saturday. And I'm going to link that down in the show notes. But there are also tons of shakeout runs on Saturday, ranging from Peloton, Lululemon, Tracksmith, Runner to our own. Our Facebook group's shakeout run, the Speed Striders, has been sponsored by UCAN. And yes, we'll have some UCAN samples. Supplies are limited because I'm bringing in the supply. So if you show up early enough at 7:25 at the Opera Steps facing the Harbor Bridge on Saturday, you can take advantage of that. We'll also link that below. But back to my question, as runners plan for their final run before the big race day, are there any tips or is there anything you want to add to help them make the most of it?
Obviously, you don't want to overdo it. Like, there is such a thing as getting too excited and doing too much. So obviously just maybe pick your favorites of what you want to do. If you have a routine, stick to it. Some people, they like to keep their legs a bit fresh and they don't run the day before the marathon. I've sort of subscribed to that theory. Some people, they do like to turn their legs over and do a bit of a light run. So it's really up to you as to what you've been training and what you're preparing for. Just stick to your schedule. Don't overdo it. Don't get too excited. There's going to be lots of things going on. Yeah, so that's my best advice for that.
All right, thank you for that. Now, for those of us that are Kipchoge fans, if you want to catch a glimpse of Kipchoge, you can do so by going to the Meet of the Stars event, where he will be there, hopefully, among other very amazing athletes. And that event is listed in the official event guide. We know that the elite field is going to be incredibly fast and deep. Can you maybe tell us some names from the Australian elite field that we should be cheering for?
Okay, we've got an incredibly deep Australian field of athletes that you can look out for. So we do have Brett Robinson, who is the fastest marathon runner in Australia currently. Liam Adams is also in the field. We also have Reese Edwards. In fact, there is going to be a broadcast on Australian television live on Channel 7. So if anyone sort of wants to hear the commentary and to sort of maybe even watch it back later, then they can watch that on replay. I'm sure that if you're outside of Australia, you could watch it locally. But here in Australia, it'll be streamed later on 7+. So, people that are running the marathon, I don't think they're going to miss out on any of the moments if they watch it back later. But for everyone at home, that is cheering on our broadcast Australia-wide on TV.
Very good, thank you. And I'll be trying to get the post footage for sure. I love watching races and I do feel like I'm going to miss out. Now, for carb loading, do you have any Italian restaurant suggestions or any alternatives that you recommend? In other words, are there any easy pasta places that don't require reservations now that we're so close to race day? Or do you have any other good suggestions for pre-race meals?
Well, having been to other major marathons, I can assure you that there's going to be plenty of people that are in need of pasta, whether you have a reservation or not. But I guess it depends on your budget as to what you want to spend. So a lot of the fine dining restaurants, they'll even have pastas available on the menu. They'll even put pastas on the menu. So I don't think there's going to be any problems. A lot of the big name hotels here, like where you're staying, they'll also have a restaurant on site or even several restaurants on site. So if you are sort of worried and you want to have an early night in, you can potentially get room service or eat at the restaurant at the hotel. Normally, if you're staying at the hotel, they actually do give you priority for a table. So that's something to consider as well. If you are struggling to find a booking, maybe just to look at what your hotel is offering. I think. But yeah, there is options essentially for every budget here in Sydney. So there are some cheap places that you can go to. And there's, as I said, the fine dining restaurants that you can also seek out. It is probably a good idea if you are having a larger group to book. Typically here in Australia, some of the restaurants, they only take bookings for larger parties. But if they are full, they don't really have a lot of them don't have a waiting list. So they'll actually just turn you away instead. So that's something to consider.
All right, let's move on to race day. For those of us that had high ambitions, but we either got injured or we are facing our own reality that we are going to be running a little bit slower, what can we do? The race is organized by starting groups, 1 through 3, and then within each field you have assembly areas, which are either red, green, or orange. I've heard that changing starting groups is not possible, but that you may change assembly areas within your starting group as long as you're moving to an assembly area that is slower, not faster. Can you confirm that?
Essentially, the marathon people, I understand, they want people to stay within their assigned group as much as possible. There might be extenuating circumstances where that's not the case. Obviously, you want to sort of talk to people when you pick up your race bib, if that's what you're intending to do, just to see what options are available to you. But yes, you definitely need to stay within your starting group in terms of the color. In terms of people that are going to be running slower or are injured, I think you just need to sort of pace yourself. Obviously, people will be sort of going off around you. So I don't sort of think you should need to be discouraged by people overtaking. In Australia, we keep to the left-hand side if you are running slower. So this allows people on the right-hand side to sort of overtake, etc. So if you are intending to move a little slower than what your assigned pace is, then I would definitely suggest just keeping to the left, keeping out of people's way, enjoying the race as much as you can, going at your own pace, not giving up. You've trained for this. Sometimes it doesn't work out to your plans, but, that's okay. As long as we get the medal at the end, then that's the most important thing.
All right, so keeping to the left, guys, that's a huge reminder from us that come from countries whose traffic is on the right side and not on the left side. And I'm going to throw in a little personal story. I almost got killed by cars in traffic many, many times when I was in Tokyo because it's such a big habit to look left and then right and not right and then left. And then you're starting to walk and boom, there's a car coming from the right side. So keep that in mind. That's really, really important. Now, moving on from that, we cannot conclude any questionnaire without talking about the weather. We are close enough to having a 10-day forecast because we are about a week and a half away from race day. And I know you are not a weatherman, but what are your thoughts on the trend of the weather? What should runners be prepared for when they show up on race day?
Well, essentially, Sydney, we're currently heading towards the end of winter. It is still winter. It still does rain a lot here in Sydney. We have had record rainfall this year so far. We seem to be breaking records year after year in terms of the rain. So far, the weather forecast for race week looks pretty good. So from what I have seen, I can sort of probably suggest that the temperature will be probably in the high teens, low 20s as a maximum in terms of Celsius. So yeah, I don't think it's going to be too bad at all. You probably might want a jacket at the end for your bag drop, as essentially there's nothing provided in terms of a poncho or a jacket or anything like that that's provided to you at the finish line. So if that is something that you're used to, that you'd like, potentially you should put that into your bag. Or if you have a spectator that's waiting for you, one of your loved ones, then make sure that they have that there available for you to meet and give that to you.
Very good, Ben. Thank you. And this concludes our questions about the marathon, but equally important, let's talk about some local customs. As travelers in different countries, we should always be respectful of the other cultures and customs. And so with that, let's talk about some things that may be different. There are some questions that have been asked in multiple Facebook groups, so this is kind of a catch-all of all of those. What are some things that you guys do or don't do, such as tipping? Can we drink the tap water? Also, all of us want to know how big the spiders are. Can we see kangaroos randomly hopping around the neighborhoods? And are there any koala bears present in the trees of the parks?
Great questions. Yeah, tipping's not really a custom here at all. Like, we have a pretty good minimum wage for our serving staff. Probably, overall, I would say that not to expect the same level of services at a restaurant that you probably would. You won't have, waitresses and waiters, waiting on you quite so attentively as what they do in America, sort of wanting a tip. So they'll leave you alone a bit, which is kind of nice. So yeah, so tipping is not necessarily a thing unless you've got exceptional service. Then obviously you can provide a tip if you like, but it's not obliged or expected. Sometimes when you have the payment machines that come to you that has on there still to leave a tip, you don't need to worry about that. That's fine. They're not going to sort of scowl their nose at you if you sort of press decline. In terms of the other questions, how big are spiders? That's a great question. Spiders, they're normally like, most of them are not venomous. They're actually your friends. They actually eat the other bugs. So, if you leave them alone, they'll leave you alone sort of type situation. So I wouldn't worry about them too much. The koala bears, you do, I guess, that they do sort of invade suburbia a little bit. They are around in the gum trees and so forth. So there are animals. You're probably more likely to come across a possum than you are a koala. But, that we do live amongst wildlife. Sydney has got like some amazing bird life here. So probably one of the things that you might, notice when you're in Sydney is how many birds are around and the different sort of species of birds and how they like talking. The actual seagulls here as well. You have to be careful in Circular Quay because if you sort of eat a sandwich, they'll come and snatch your food out of your hand. So just make sure that, when you're actually eating in the city, specifically in Circular Quay, the birds there, they will actually come and eat out of your hand. So, make sure you sort of watch out for that. So in terms of the water as well, it is definitely drinkable. The marathon on the course is actually from the served tap water. It is very drinkable. Like the water quality here is excellent. So, there's no issues there. At the end of the finish line, you are provided with spring water in a bottle, but in terms of the course, you are provided with tap water from a cup, and it is very drinkable. There's even signs in some hotel rooms that I've seen here that say you can drink the tap water. So that's how good it is.
All right, thank you. Now let's talk about some absolute must-dos. If you're in the country for a very, very tight schedule, what are some absolute must-dos in the Sydney area that do not require reservations?
Okay, great question. So probably in 3 days, you maybe not even going to get over the jet lag situation. So, hopefully with your travel plans, you've actually accounted for that, you are going from one side of the world to the other. So jet lag is a real thing and you need to watch out for that and obviously let your body adjust. But in terms of things that don't require reservations, you've got the zoo. There's several zoos here in Sydney that you can go to. Taronga is the most famous zoo, but it is on the side of a hill. So if, doing it before the marathon or immediately after, it might be a bit difficult for you with your legs, but it is really scenic. It is beautiful. I do recommend it. You've also got the Sydney Harbour. There are boats that go on the Sydney Harbour, like the Harbour Cruise. So you can get the big boats with basically no notice. They just sort of run all the time. You can do that. Similarly, there's jet boats as well that go on the harbour. So if you like speed and you've got a bit of an adrenaline junkie, you can definitely go for that. And also there's the public ferry as well. So again, with the boat, then you can catch that to Manly. It is quite scenic. It can get a bit bumpy if the weather is not so good. So if you do suffer a bit of seasickness, then there's that. And there's also whale watching too. So there are whale watching cruises around because it is whale watching season. So you can actually go out in a boat to just outside of Sydney Harbour and they'll show you some whales. And some of them even do have a money back guarantee that if you don't see a whale, then they'll give you your money back. So it's something that to consider there as well. Obviously, you've got other things like the Harbour Bridge climb. You can do a tour of the Opera House. So that doesn't generally sell out because it is such a large place. So you can definitely look at that. So hopefully, though, that gives you an idea of some of the things that you can do.
Perfect. Now, last but not least, what are some foods that we have to try and how dangerous is your coffee? Because word on the street is the Australian coffee is super, super strong.
Well, essentially, our coffee here tends to be quite strong. And we don't tend to put like lots of sweet stuff in it, like sugars and that sort of thing. So in America, they call it cream. We basically put milk in our coffee. So a lot of our coffees are espresso based. So if you have been to Starbucks and sort of used their espressos, I know that our national coffee is the flat white. So you probably might have tried that already. It is basically similar to a latte, but doesn't have the foam on the top. So that is quite nice. Chain coffee stores aren't really a thing here, but a lot of the cafes or the coffee shops, they advertise what beans that they use, like what coffee beans. So if you do like a specific type of coffee, like if you see one that you like, then essentially look for that particular chain of coffee beans, and then essentially, you might be able to sort of find that again. In terms of foods, we've got the avocado on toast that you might like. So that is quite world famous now. So you can probably get that everywhere. It's kind of a bit like, toast with guacamole, but the avocado is fresh. We obviously have Vegemite as well. So if you like salty foods, definitely try Vegemite. You can get that at most local cafes. And of course, we have our meat pie, which is essentially, it's like a beef mince inside of a little pie that's kind of like pastry that's about this big. You can find them at local bakeries. They are a bit harder to find in the Sydney CBD, but there are a few bakeries around that you can find that do sell a meat pie. So that is something that you need to try. We have got I could probably talk for half an hour to an hour about different Australian foods that you need to try, but, there are lots of different things. We also have, a lot of the American foods and European foods here too. So if there is something that you like or that you're missing, it's quite likely that we do offer it because we are a very multicultural society.
Yum, I'm going to try all of that out. Now, is there anything that we forgot to talk about that you feel like is important for people that are traveling from abroad?
Well, essentially, I would probably recommend that you have all of your travel plans printed out just in case something happens to your phone, your device, etc. You don't know what's happening. You've got your visa situation sorted. That's the most important thing. So not only do you need your passport, your tickets on the plane, you also need to make sure that you've got your visa situation sorted out, because if you don't have a visa, then essentially you won't be able to get in unless you're an Australian citizen or from New Zealand. So that's quite important as well. So make sure you have your visa information available for the airline, because essentially you might not even be able to get to Australia if you don't have a visa, that the airline might turn you around at the check-in desk. So that's quite important. Just make sure, we do have a lot of things that you can buy here. So don't stress if you've forgotten something. Chances are that we do have it here, that you can get it. Amazon is a thing here if you need to get some last-minute deliveries, etc. happening. So, yeah. So, just don't stress. Have a good time. We're all friendly here. So,
Okay. I'm going to be printing everything out as soon as we're done with this recording. And yes, this is a time and age when Amazon is everywhere. Ben, thank you so much for your time and sharing your knowledge with you. We really appreciate it. And we will see you in Sydney.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. And I hope everyone has a great time here. Thanks for having me on again. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Perfect. So that concludes my conversation with Ben. Thank you guys for tuning in. Again, we have those videos that are also about Sydney. Feel free to check them out. And until next time, see you in Sydney.